5 minutes ago, the Philippines was thrown into chaos as a massive flood struck, causing severe damage to homes and vehicles in Cagayan de Oro province. Welcome everyone to the latest episode of Tuyat Mat. Cagayan de Oro is bearing the brunt of nature's fury. The terrifying flash flood swept in, turning the entire Kamaman area into a sea of water. Barren Stream and its tributaries overflowed, sweeping away houses and vehicles. The rain poured down relentlessly, with up to 100 millimeters of rainfall in just a few hours, submerging the entire city in chaos and floodwaters. Dozens of families were forced to evacuate, their belongings reduced to rubble, as residents stood stunned by the disaster. Can Cagayan de Oro overcome this horrifying nightmare? Floods caused severe damage to Cagayan de Oro City. Last Tuesday, Cagayan de Oro City, a bustling hub of Mindanao Island, was unexpectedly hit by a devastating flash flood. Plunged the entire community into confusion and chaos. A low-pressure area outside the Philippines monitoring range, combined with the southwest monsoon, locally known as Havoc, is affecting the weather. Unprecedented heavy rains poured down, turning familiar streets into raging rivers. According to the initial forecast by the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, this area is expected to have only scattered light rain, nothing to worry about. However, the weather system unexpectedly intensified suddenly, bringing rainfall of 50 to 100 millimeters within just a few hours. The heavy rain exceeded the drainage capacity of the sewer system and rivers in the area. The massive rainfall, equivalent to that of major storms, submerged the entire city in a sea of water. The most severely affected area is Barangay Kamamanan, a densely populated residential area near the city center, where thousands of households reside. Bedanay Creek is usually a gentle, small stream, but when the flood season comes, the water rises rapidly, turning it into a raging, turbulent river. The streets, usually bustling with traffic and pedestrians, from colorful jeepneys to streams of busy people on foot. Now, the water had turned murky, sweeping along vehicles, wooden crates, tree branches, and countless other debris. Images captured from the scene reveal the devastating force of the flood, as it swept away and submerged entire residential areas. The storm caused damage to houses and forced residents to quickly seek safe shelter. A jeep and a motorcycle were swept away by floodwaters in Barangay Kamamanan. The car veered off the road, nearly plunging deep into the residential area and getting buried in the muddy sludge. Luckily, there was no one in those cars. But images of the incident quickly spread on social media, shocking the nation with the severity of the disaster. The locals consider this flood an unusual weather phenomenon. Known as Baguio, the heavy rain arrived suddenly, leaving them no time to react. Many elderly people, who have been devoted to Cagayan de Oro for decades. They said it had been over 30 years since they had seen such a devastating flood. The floodwaters not only inundated the streets but also rushed forcefully into people's homes, damaging furniture, electronic devices, clothing, and precious heirlooms passed down through generations in families. Barangay Kamamanan was the hardest hit in the low-lying areas. The floodwaters rose waist-high, even chest-deep in some areas, leaving many people unable to leave their homes. The residents waded through the murky water, clutching small bags filled with essential belongings. Has become a symbol of resilience, despite immense hardships, for the Cagayan de Oro community in their darkest hours. Many families, from those in modest circumstances living in simple houses to more well-off households, everyone felt helpless watching their belongings being swept away by the floodwaters. The local authorities and rescue teams urgently carried out response efforts. However, the terrifying force of the floodwaters posed significant challenges to the response efforts. The main roads leading into Kamamanan Barangay are submerged in floodwaters. Access to areas in need of emergency assistance is being hindered. Residents in low-lying areas are advised to move to higher ground. But many people couldn't leave immediately because the floodwaters rose too quickly. Stories of brave citizens crossing floodwaters to rescue loved ones or help neighbors quickly spread far and wide. However, the flood hit so suddenly that many residents couldn't react in time. From stockpiling food to moving assets to higher ground, the people suffered heavy losses to both their property and livelihoods. The steep price of genius. The flash flood in Cagayan de Oro not only left the streets in chaos but also caused severe damage. It deeply affects the lives of thousands of people. In just a few hours, the floodwaters submerged the entire city, bringing all activities to a complete standstill. The crowded streets suddenly turned into raging, fierce rivers, leaving thousands of commuters and passengers stranded, unable to move. Public transportation, from buses to jeepneys, has always been the lifeblood of the city. Forced to halt operations due to the strong current, unable to move safely. Many people, from those finishing their shifts and heading home to those on their way to the market. They felt helpless as they could only stand and watch the floodwaters sweep away their familiar streets, powerless to stop the raging current. The trading area along the Batanes stream suffered particularly severe losses. Many stores, warehouses, and offices were flooded. A thick layer of mud covered the entire floor, damaging nearly all the goods, from frozen food to household appliances and electronic devices. The shop owners, those who have spent years building and nurturing their own businesses. It's heartbreaking to see all their hard work swept away by the floodwaters in an instant. Many businesses reported that their cooling equipment was damaged due to flooding. Fresh foods such as fish, meat, and vegetables spoiled, resulting in significant economic losses. The images captured scenes of shops submerged in thick mud, with goods swept away and floating on the water's surface. This flood has caused severe damage, deeply affecting the livelihoods of the people. In some places, shop owners are striving to preserve what remains. But most of the goods were damaged and unusable, plunging them into financial distress. The city's infrastructure system was also severely affected, particularly with many major roads in Barangay Camamanan suffering extensive damage. The already dilapidated roads are now severely eroded, flooded with mud and debris, making movement extremely difficult, nearly impossible to pass. The power supply was disrupted in many areas, leaving residents without electricity and unable to use essential devices like fans, lights, or water pumps. The drainage system, already overloaded due to lack of investment and maintenance, couldn't handle the massive amount of water from this rainfall. This caused floodwaters to stagnate, prolonging the flooding duration. In some areas, floodwaters remain stagnant for hours after the rain stops, hindering cleanup and recovery efforts. According to authorities' estimates, infrastructure damage could reach millions of pesos, a staggering figure for a city already struggling to overcome economic hardships. The small bridges spanning Batane Creek have been damaged, disrupting traffic and isolating many areas. Many schools, cultural centers, and other public facilities were also submerged in floodwaters, forcing them to temporarily suspend operations. Many households, especially those living in low-lying areas, lost their income sources as local markets and shops were forced to temporarily close. These losses not only affect material life but also leave deep emotional scars, as people are forced to live in constant unease and anxiety about the future. However, amid countless hardships, the spirit of unity within the community gradually revived as people came together to support and share with one another. From sharing food to joining hands in clearing the mud, all these actions bring hope that Cagayan de Oro will soon overcome this crisis. The authorities implemented emergency measures in response to the flooding situation. Facing the devastating force of the flash flood in Cagayan de Oro, the city authorities immediately implemented emergency measures to aid residents and minimize the damage as much as possible. The National Committee for Disaster Risk Reduction and Control, in collaboration with the ASEAN Disaster Information Network, has issued urgent warnings. Miano Island is facing the risk of prolonged flooding and requires special attention. This warning advises residents to take precautions against heavy rainfall expected to last at least 72 hours, especially in low-lying areas and near rivers and streams. The rescue team, including firefighters, police, and local volunteers, was quickly dispatched to the scene. They tirelessly assisted residents trapped in the flooded area, despite the relentless downpour and raging floodwaters. According to estimates, at least 25 households, dozens of people, from children to the elderly, have been evacuated from high-risk areas. Most of these households are in Barangay Camamanan, where floodwaters have risen to alarming levels. Over 60 people have been relocated to safe temporary shelters, which are set up in schools, cultural centers, and other public facilities across the city. Rescue teams prioritized evacuating the most vulnerable individuals, including children, the elderly, and those with weakened physical conditions, from severely flooded homes. They used rescue boats to navigate through the flooded areas where roads were impassable. In Barangay Camamanan, rescue teams worked tirelessly, combing through every house and alley to ensure no one was left trapped in the fierce floodwaters. Images of rescue workers wading through floodwaters, carrying children on their backs or carefully guiding the elderly to safety have become symbols of their dedication and courage in the face of danger. The shelters not only provide accommodation but also ensure residents have access to essential necessities. Immediately, essential supplies such as food, clean water, blankets, and clothing were distributed to help families overcome this difficult period. At some evacuation points, medical staff are stationed to provide health checkups for residents, prioritizing children and the elderly. To protect their health and avoid the harmful effects of prolonged exposure to floodwaters or living in temporary conditions. The Cagayan de Oro City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office has advised residents to remain vigilant in the coming days. Stay in higher areas and prepare an emergency kit, including dry food, drinking water, a flashlight, and other essential items. These announcements are broadcast continuously on radio, television, and online platforms, helping the public stay informed and respond promptly. The city leaders along with local authorities visited the affected areas in person to assess the situation and direct rescue efforts. In Barangay Camamanan, the hardest hit area, authorities walked along muddy, flood-submerged roads, visiting residents and listening to their accounts of the hardships they were facing. According to initial reports, this area suffered the most severe damage, with dozens of houses submerged in floodwaters, many roads destroyed, and small businesses severely devastated. However, other areas such as La Pazan and Mahajik were also affected, though less severely, with some roads flooded and many houses slightly damaged. The government is committed to continuing support for the people, from providing essential supplies to restoring infrastructure as soon as possible. Despite many challenges, these efforts still ignite a glimmer of hope for the people of Cagayan de Oro, giving them confidence that the city will soon overcome the crisis. The flash flood in Cagayan de Oro is not just an extreme weather event but also a wake-up call about the increasingly devastating impacts of climate change. Scientists have observed that extreme weather events, such as abnormal heavy rainfall or floods, are occurring more frequently due to the effects of climate change and shifts in monsoon patterns. The Philippines is a country frequently hit by tropical storms and monsoons due to its location in a region heavily affected by these natural disasters. Flood prevention events like these are creating new challenges, requiring both authorities and citizens to prepare more thoroughly. The flooding in Cagayan de Oro is clear proof that nature can be harsher and more unpredictable than we imagine. The heavy rains arrived unexpectedly, and the raging floodwaters far exceeded all forecasts by meteorologists. One of the reasons flooding has become more severe is due to unplanned urbanization in certain areas of Cagayan de Oro. Many residential areas, particularly in Barangay Camamanan, are built close to streams and low-lying areas but lack adequate drainage systems to handle heavy rainfall. The outdated sewer system frequently gets clogged with trash and mud. The drainage system cannot meet the demand during extreme weather conditions. The consequence was rapidly rising floodwaters, causing prolonged inundation and further damage to residential and commercial areas. Additionally, deforestation upstream of Betanay Creek has increased the risk of soil erosion and mudrock flows. The floodwaters grew more violent and unpredictable. Urban planning experts are urging local authorities to increase investment in sustainable infrastructure systems. From upgrading drainage systems to constructing flood prevention structures such as dams, levees, and reservoirs. These solutions, though costly, are necessary to protect people from increasingly extreme weather conditions. Along with that, priority should be given to raising public awareness of disaster prevention measures. People need guidance on how to prepare an emergency kit containing food, water, flashlights, and essential medical supplies. They need to clearly understand how to evacuate safely, especially when floods strike suddenly, to minimize the risk of danger. These training courses can be conducted at schools, cultural centers, or community facilities. This flood clearly demonstrated the resilient spirit of the Cagayan de Oro people, with their united actions and mutual support in times of hardship. However, the study also shows that with more thorough preparation, we can mitigate damage and help communities feel more secure afterward. The government must closely collaborate with non-governmental organizations and international experts to develop a sustainable, long-term development strategy. From upgrading infrastructure systems to conserving natural ecosystems like forests and waterways. The restoration of forests in upstream areas, combined with more effective waste management measures. This solution could help reduce the risk of future floods and landslides. The lessons from flood prevention efforts in Cagayan de Oro are not only valuable for this city alone, but also serve as precious experience for the entire Philippines and neighboring countries in the region. Climate change is a serious challenge that cannot be overlooked, requiring the collective effort of the entire society to respond and overcome. Amid the fierce flood sweeping through the Cagayan de Oro region, the city's people demonstrated admirable solidarity and resilience, becoming a brilliant light that dispelled the dark days. In Barangay Camamanan, the hardest-hit area, the residents, whether close friends or mere acquaintances, united in supporting each other through hardship. They are ready to wade through mud, puddles, and thorns to clear roads buried in dirt and debris. Families with food reserves willingly shared, from small bags of rice to canned fish, bringing comfort to those who had lost their food supplies. Those simple gestures, whether a warm meal or a refreshing bottle of water, ignite hope, warming hearts with the reassurance that no one is alone in times of hardship. The volunteers in Barangay Camamanan, from enthusiastic young individuals to seasoned elders, braved dangers to assist struggling families. They crossed the murky waters, carrying food, clothing, and warm words of encouragement to those isolated in their homes. A local family opened their home to 3 neighboring households trapped by the flood. Despite the cramped space, they still shared every little corner, from the flimsy mats to the worn-out chairs, so that everyone had a place to rest during those difficult days. Stories like these quickly spread throughout the neighborhood, becoming the most genuine testament to human warmth amid the raging flood. The spirit of unity shines not only in Barangay Camamanan but also radiates brilliantly throughout the city of Cagayan de Oro. In the city center, a small eatery that usually serves affordable dishes has decided to cook free meals to support those in need. The shop owner, along with their family and some neighbors, worked tirelessly to prepare hundreds of meals each day, from fragrant, sticky white rice paired with rich braised fish to light bowls of vegetable soup. These meals were delivered to temporary shelters, where dozens of families were seeking refuge, bringing them warmth and emotional